Mike Tyson, the rise, the fall, and the reckoning of a fighting legend.
Okay, settle in. Let's journey into the whirlwind, the paradox, the sheer force of nature that is the life of Michael Gerard Tyson. This isn't just a boxing story. It's a saga of survival, meteoric rise, catastrophic fall, and a strange, unexpected search for peace. It's a story that grips you, shakes you, and leaves you wondering. Picture this: Brownsville, Brooklyn, late 1960s, early 70s. Not the gentrified Brooklyn of today, but a concrete jungle where survival was the only curriculum. Poverty wasn't just a condition, it was the air you breathed. Crime wasn't an anomaly, it was a career path. Into this crucible, a boy named Mike Tyson was born. Small for his age, with a lisp, a target. Fear was his constant companion. He learned early that the world responds to force. Stealing pigeons, running with street gangs, petty crime escalating. His trajectory seemed preordained: juvenile detention, maybe prison, maybe an early grave. By 13, he'd been arrested over 30 times. He was lost, adrift in a sea of neglect and violence. But fate, or perhaps desperation, throws lifelines in the strangest places. In a juvenile detention center, Tyson's raw power caught the eye of a counselor and former boxer Bobby Stewart. Stewart saw something flicker beneath the anger, a spark of untamed potential. He introduced Tyson to a legendary, almost mythical figure, Cus D'Amato. D'Amato wasn't just a boxing trainer. He was a Svengali, a philosopher, a surrogate father. An old man living in relative seclusion in Catskill, New York, he had already molded Floyd Patterson into a heavyweight champion. He saw in Tyson not just a fighter, but the fighter. He saw the fear that fueled the rage, and he believed he could channel it, weaponize it. Cus took Tyson in, legally adopting him after Tyson's mother died when he was 16. This wasn't just training, it was total immersion. D'Amato's gym became Tyson's monastery, his sanctuary, his laboratory. Days were filled with relentless, brutal training, honing the famous peekaboo style, bobbing, weaving, explosive power, terrifying speed for a heavyweight. Nights were filled with D'Amato's teachings, history, psychology, building an invincible mindset. Cus didn't just want to create a champion, he wanted to create an aura, a monster opponents would fear before the first bell even rang. He famously told Tyson, "People pay to see knockouts. They pay to see destruction." He planted the seed of the baddest man on the planet. And rise he did, like a rocket strapped to dynamite. Tyson turned pro in 1985, aged 18. The boxing world hadn't seen anything like it. He wasn't just winning, he was annihilating opponents. Fights often lasted seconds, not rounds. His power was concussive, his speed bewildering. He moved with the ferocity of a middleweight trapped in a heavyweight's body. A blur of black trunks, no socks, pure menace. Within 20 months, after 27 consecutive victories, 25 by knockout, he stood opposite Trevor Berbick for the WBC heavyweight title. November 22nd, 1986. Tyson was just 20 years, 4 months, and 22 days old. He didn't just beat Berbick, he demolished him in 2 rounds. The youngest heavyweight champion in history. The prophecy of Cus D'Amato was being fulfilled. But Cus wasn't there to see it. He had died a year earlier in 1985. This loss was seismic for Tyson. D'Amato was his anchor, his compass. Without him, the carefully constructed psychological fortress began to show cracks. even as Tyson continued his reign of terror, unifying the WBA and IBF titles to become the undisputed champion. Fame, unimaginable wealth, and the absence of D'Amato's guiding hand created a perfect storm. Enter Don King, the flamboyant, controversial promoter. Enter Robin Givens, the actress whose marriage to Tyson became a public spectacle of accusations, control, and messy divorce. Tyson seemed surrounded by chaos, by people who saw him perhaps less as a person and more as a commodity, a volatile asset. His focus wavered. The discipline instilled by Cus frayed. Whispers grew louder. Was Tyson beatable? Then came Tokyo. February 11th, 1990. James Buster Douglas, a 42-1 underdog. Nobody gave Douglas a chance. It was supposed to be another quick demolition, but Tyson seemed sluggish, unprepared. Douglas fought the fight of his life, weathering Tyson's storm, even getting knocked down himself, only to rise and unleash a furious combination in the 10th round. Tyson went down. For the first time as a professional, he couldn't beat the count. The invincible aura shattered. The world stood still. It remains one of the biggest upsets in sports history. The Douglas loss was a shock, but worse was to come. In 1991, Tyson was accused of raping Desiree Washington, a beauty pageant contestant. The trial was a media circus. In 1992, he was convicted and sentenced to 6 years in prison. The baddest man on the planet was now inmate number 92235. Prison changed him, but how? He converted to Islam, read voraciously, Marx, Shakespeare, Tolstoy. Yet the rage still simmered. He was released in 1995 after serving 3 years, still a huge draw, still capable of terrifying power. He quickly reclaimed heavyweight titles, the hype machine roaring back to life. But the man seemed different, perhaps more volatile, less controlled. Then came Evander Holyfield, a clash fans had wanted for years. In their first fight in 1996, Holyfield, the crafty veteran, weathered Tyson's early onslaught and systematically broke him down, winning by TKO. It was another stunning defeat for Tyson. The rematch in 1997 became one of the most bizarre and infamous events in sports history. Frustrated by what he perceived as Holyfield's headbutts and seemingly on his way to another defeat, Tyson did the unthinkable. In a clinch, he spat out his mouthpiece and bit off a chunk of Holyfield's right ear. After a deduction and a warning, unbelievably, he bit Holyfield's left ear. The fight was stopped. Tyson was disqualified, fined $3 million, and had his boxing license revoked, though later reinstated. The bite fight cemented Tyson's image not just as fearsome, but as dangerously unhinged. His boxing career continued sporadically after that, but the magic, the fear factor, was largely gone. He still had knockout power, but lacked the speed, stamina, and discipline of his youth. He lost to Lennox Lewis in a bid for the title, suffered embarrassing losses to journeymen, and finally retired in 2005 after quitting on his stool against Kevin McBride. Financial ruin followed, despite earning hundreds of millions. Bankruptcy, personal tragedy struck hardest with the accidental death of his young daughter, Exodus, in 2009. Yet the Tyson story doesn't end in darkness. Something shifted. Maybe it was age, loss, or simply exhaustion from the constant internal battle. He began to show a different side, a surprisingly vulnerable, introspective side. His one-man Broadway show, Undisputed Truth, directed by Spike Lee, offered a raw, often uncomfortable look at his life. He appeared in movies, often parodying his own image, like in The Hangover. He launched a successful podcast, Hotboxin', with Mike Tyson, where he engages in surprisingly candid and philosophical conversations. He became an entrepreneur in the cannabis industry. So who is Mike Tyson? Is he the terrified kid from Brownsville? The disciplined machine forged by Customato? The terrifying force that dominated boxing? The self-destructive celebrity? The inmate? The man who committed an unforgivable act in the ring? Or the older, seemingly calmer man seeking peace today? He is perhaps all of them. His life is a brutal, cautionary, yet undeniably fascinating tale of the extremes of human experience, from the lowest depths to the highest peaks, and navigating the treacherous landscape in between. He embodied raw, untamed power like few athletes ever have, but also the fragility that often lies beneath such ferocity. He remains a cultural icon, a symbol of power, fear, controversy, and ultimately, a complex, flawed human being whose story continues to captivate and confound us. The whirlwind never truly stops.